shot. End zone. It is caught. Yeboah. Horsted with an incredible one-handed grab. Did he catch that for a touchdown? Chris Meyer. And he still makes the catch for the touchdown.
Welcome into the Lucky Shots podcast, everyone. I'm Ricky Larson, joined again by Jacob Montesano, and we are joined today by Dustin. I'm not going to try to pronounce your last name.
No, that's fair. VANHUNNIK.
VANHUNNIK.
I'm
okay.
too used to that.
He's joining us today. Let's see.
Are you the Dustin in our league or no? There's a Dustin in our league.
I don't think so.
No.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So Dustin has his own podcast, Caught in the Current. You can listen to it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. When do you guys have those?
So we just started our second season. It actually released just this morning.
Okay.
We're starting up the second season, releasing on Wednesdays.
Awesome.
So every single Wednesday, those will be out.
Alrighty.
So I know it's not a sports podcast, but tell us a little bit about it.
So I mean, you kind of just go by the name of it with Caught in the Current. It's all about just being caught in the current news and the current events. But it's taking a little bit of the lighter side, a little bit of a point of just lightening your day, lightening your week. Mm-hmm. It's about an hour and a half, 2 hours long. So if it's something that you got to just drive on the way to work 2 or 3 times during the week, you can spread it out, still enjoy it that way. It's segmented out. But on top of doing that, we very much make a point to not be political, not make a point of being divisive at all. So a lot of our news is pretty lighthearted, a lot of funny stuff that we can have good discussions about. But outside of that, we get into irrationally angry. It's a point that there's always something you got to get off your chest. Whether you're on the way to you're mid-drive and you're like, yeah, you know what, I agree. These people are stupid, or whatever it may be. That just how frustrating food has become. And how everything has to have a hot Cheetos flavor is one of them this week. So some fun stuff to get into there, and plenty more to go with it, as well as what we saw on the internet. And obviously the main point of it, the central part, is called Penny for Our Thoughts. And it's a point where every single listen across all platforms that we get is an automatic penny donated to a charity. We cycle through 3 weeks at a time with a given charity and donate all proceeds 100% all the way through to the given charity. Nice. Just this last week, we finished up as well. We announced the new one is going to be our 5th charity to support. It'd be American Heart Association, and bumped up our total of $43 and some odd cents going to the Parkinson's Foundation. And brings our 2021 total up to $170 donated already. So
very nice.
It's a lot of fun. Good purpose. All you need in a podcast.
I like it. All right, so you could catch him on Wednesdays and then swing over and listen to us on Thursdays.
Perfect.
You can follow the show on Twitter and Facebook. Don't forget to share the pages and the shows. You can watch on YouTube at Lucky Shots Media. Like and subscribe there. And if you would rather listen to the podcast, you can listen on Anchor, Breaker, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, or Spotify. All of those links are in the Twitter and Facebook bios. Don't forget to follow Jacob on Facebook at Meteorologist Jacob Montesano. And you can follow Dustin on Twitter at DustinV_36, I believe. Yes.
Yeah, that sounds right. I had to make it so complicated to be different.
Right, gotcha. All right, so everybody, it's football time. So we're going to hop right into things. We'll start with some news and notes. This one hits close to home for me as a Broncos fan. Vic Fangio on Noah Fant and Bradley Chubb playing Week 1 was quoted saying, "I think so."
Reassuring.
Gotta love when a coach doesn't give you, the answer you're looking for, and it's just, "I think so." I think a lot of us would like to just go to our jobs and be like, "Yeah, I think so." All right, the Ravens signed Le'Veon Bell to their practice squad. This comes after Justice Hill suffered a significant lower leg injury, probably out the rest of the year. And the team's kind of looking for a running back 3. Do we see Le'Veon Bell at any point in this season hurting Gus Edwards fantasy-wise?
I think maybe very slightly, but I think it's been very clear that Le'Veon Bell was a very overrated running back because this Pittsburgh running back for several years was amazing to me. We saw D'Angelo Williams do well. And ever since he left Pittsburgh, he's been terrible. I mean, he kind of kicked him. What's the phrase? Kicked himself in the leg or something like that.
Shot yourself in the leg.
Yeah, he basically him holding out was basically the end of his career almost.
The Plaxico Burress analogy.
Yeah,
that's what that ultimately comes down to. No, I completely agree. I think you get to Le'Veon Bell at his stage of his career, And it's easy to say, yeah, the potential's there because of where he was at just a couple of years ago, and that's fine. But what they're bringing him in for is a glorified third back, someone that they can kind of put on special teams if they needed to. But otherwise, he's a usable body with a recognizable name and potential. That's a perfect spot for them to be in the third one. But I think at this point, they're perfectly primed to go forward with Gus Edwards, who's proven himself. It's not like he has any sort of issue of just, we hope he works out. I mean, the guy has been, if not better than J.K. Dobbins in efficiency last year outside of touchdowns. Right. So he's going to be primed to go in with a huge workload. And then Tyson Williams just paved his own path this preseason. I think he's got his own role as a backup. The only thing that you're going to get out of Le'Veon Bell is just in the possibly in a PPR value if he's going to go in and be any sort of a receiving back. Even in half-point leagues, he could be a speculative ad, but you're not adding Gus Edwards to be a PPR back in the first place, right. So I don't see that affecting it a lot there.
Yeah, I'm excited about Gus. I don't have any worries about Le'Veon Bell. I roster Gus as my running back too in a league, so I'm not worried about Lev Bell at all. And you said something about he could be the receiving back. We kind of saw him try to do that last year at Kansas City, and it wasn't super successful. So, again, I'm not super worried about him. Sticking on the Ravens, Miles Boykin and Rashad Bateman are placed on IR for the Ravens. I went ahead in a couple of leagues and picked up Rashad Bateman and put him in my IR slot later on in the year. I think that's got a little bit of value. Don't know what he's going to do, but yeah.
Yeah, you like to think he's going to have more value than, say the first-round picks that they've seen previously.
Right.
They've come through with a decent amount of hype, but wide receiver 4 or 5 hype in terms of even being taken in the draft. So
right.
It's not like they're asking the world of him. It's not like they're trying to take a Julio Jones in the top 6 pick or anything like that.
Well, and it's not like they throw the ball.
No, exactly. But it's also worth a speculative ad, like you said. Yeah. It's not going to hurt you anything more than tossing him right on an IR and picking anyone else up.
All right. Andy Reid on Clyde Edwards-Hilaire and is it Darrell Williams?
Yes.
They both are expected to play week 1, and he said they look like they're moving around pretty good.
Well, I had Edwards-Hilaire last year, and it wasn't fun watching Chiefs games whenever Darrell Williams would come in, because he would always be the passing back, and it really just hurt Edwards-Hilaire's fantasy year, especially when Le'Veon Bell came in. Even though he didn't really do much, he still took touches away.
Right.
That's why I said I feel like Edwards-Hilaire was like more of a 4th or 5th rounder. He was going like the late 2nd, early 3rd, which I thought was way too early.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think he has the potential. I think he showed last year he's not as talented as Kareem Hunt, and I was really hyped on him because I thought, if Kareem Hunt could do as well as he did, and he was a 2nd-round pick, how good can a 1st-round pick do? And it didn't really work out so well. I honestly I think it doesn't really. I think his fantasy season last year is going to be very similar to what it was this year. Maybe a little better because there's no Le'Veon Bell. But I will say that if you watch Chiefs game and you have Edwards-Hilaire, it's going to be very frustrating every time Darrell Williams comes in because it seems like he comes in every time on 3rd down.
Well, and I think if last year we would have curbed our expectations for him and drafted him or played him in a different way, take him in the 3rd, 4th round, we would have actually been happy with what he did.
Yeah.
But he was his 1st, 2nd round pick, so obviously everybody was very upset about it.
That's what worries me this year is he's still sticking around almost that same value in the 3rd round even, and that it's more just the fact that everyone has their own strategy, but I would not feel comfortable taking him as my RB1 going into any sort of draft. I don't care if it's PPR, I don't care if it's standard or half. I just don't see a way that you're going to feel comfortable all year is the biggest thing. I won't even say I'm worried about him returning value. I'm just saying you're going to be worried about returning value from what your pick is and what you could have had there. I mean, would you rather have CEH or would you rather have Chris Carson?
Chris Carson.
That's the thing, and that's just so hard to have because it's an established guy, even with a slight injury history. But you have a guy on that should be in that value because he's on the best team, but when he's got depth issues, people coming up from behind him and just taking a spot, whether it's in the passing game or whatever, plus injury issues, it's hard to be comfortable.
Tyrod Taylor will be the starter for the Texans in week 1. We'll just have to continue to monitor the Deshaun Watson fiasco going on over there. The Cowboys offensive tackle Zach Martin will be out for Thursday night's opener versus the Bucs with COVID. does that make us kind of pull back on any Cowboys offensively?
I didn't think the Cowboys were going to win. I mean, we'll talk about the Cowboys game when we do picks against the spread, but that obviously hurts. I mean, he's probably going to be in the Hall of Fame. He's a great tackle. He's been one of the best in the league the last 10 years. But I do say that does hurt. That does take it back just a little bit. Obviously, a good offensive line can make any offense look good, but that does make me pull back just a little bit. But, I mean, I wouldn't say too much. Like I said, it doesn't really change my opinion because I didn't think the Cowboys were going to win. Anyway, it may change my opinion on the spread, though.
Yeah, and then fantasy-wise, I think Zeke is still going to be able to do Zeke things. And passing-wise, the fact that he's a tackle, it kind of scares me with Dak Prescott not having that solid piece out there to protect him, which then in turn can hurt the rest of the passing game. But I think they'll be all right, and all indications are he'll be back the week after. So,
for what it's worth, I think this is a team that you would want to have him out. If you had to pick one game this year, this might be one of them. One, it's the first game of the year. You're not having a ton riding on it. There's not a ton of implication. But also the Buccaneers, just their defensive scheme, they run a 4-3. So they have two defensive tackles as opposed to spreading it out a little more.
Right.
So they're much more centered up the middle with Vita Vea and Ndamukong Suh. You're not going to necessarily miss a tackle as much as you could be going against a 3-4 team where you're going to have a lot of outside pressure from a fast linebacker.
Something like the Broncos with Von Miller and Bradley Chubb on the outside.
Yeah, exactly.
The Cowboys activated Carson Wentz, Ryan Kelly, and Zach Pascal.
You mean the Colts?
Yes. Yes. And they play Sam Ellinger, T.Y. Hilton, and Desmond Patman on the IR. My expectations for the Colts stay the same. Not too high on any of them. Evan Ingram, not expected to play week 1 with a hamstring injury, and their backup, Kyle Rudolph, is also questionable with a foot injury. And other questionable Giants are Saquon Barkley, Kenny Golladay, Kadarius Toney, and Darius Slayton.
So basically their whole team except for Daniel Jones.
The Giants,
yes.
The Giants are questionable.
Yes.
I've been
as a Saquon Barkley owner, I've been keeping an eye on it. It looks like he's going to play week 1.
Right.
All signs are pointing to it. Kenny Golladay actually said that they think the Giants' offense will start slow, so that's not good if he is saying it himself.
Well, and what Saquon this past week, he said he feels he still has a ways to go to get to that place of being where he once was, but said it could just be a couple of plays and then he feels back in the groove. So I guess we'll just kind of have to see how that goes for him. So go Broncos. That should be a fun game to watch. The Texans signed Danny Amendola to a 1-year, $2.5 million contract. Kind of gives him another weapon, but you have Tyrod Taylor as your quarterback. So
Texans still suck, doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it's only a matter of time until Brandon Cooks gets traded.
Yeah.
And I honestly feel like it's only a matter of time until David Johnson gets traded. They already actually made moves this morning. And granted, it was on defense, but they just traded Bradley Roby to the Saints.
Former Bronco as well.
I mean, it's just another name that they can take any sort of value of.
Yeah.
And I respect that, and also big Saints fan here saying that's makes me feel just a little bit more comfortable, even though it's only a couple days before we actually start.
Yeah.
But hey, we're getting in Desmond Trufant and Bradley Roby, so whatever names we can pile in, even if it's the day before, we'll take it.
Right.
But in terms of the Texans, though, I just can't help but feel like this is a fire sale as soon as they possibly can.
Yeah. And like we've talked about on previous episodes, we believe the Texans may be one of the first 0-17 teams this year.
Yeah, it's looking to be on par with that.
Looking like
I think,
Lions.
but the crazy thing is that we'll talk about week 1 might be their best option to win. We'll talk.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
We'll talk about that in a bit, though.
Alrighty, and some fun news to end out news and notes. At the end of the Notre Dame game on Saturday, it was a close game, overtime game, a game in which they were favored by a decent amount. Head coach Brian Kelly, when asked about how he thought the game went, said, "I'm in favor of execution. Maybe our entire team needs to be executed after tonight." Don't know if that's what he meant, how he said it, but that is exactly what came out of his mouth.
When I first heard that he said it, I'm like, oh, he mispronounced it. But when you watch the interview, it almost looks like he meant to
deliberately
say that.
meant to say it.
He was talking about how he was quoting an old coach and saying that. So the justification factor of that probably didn't quite hit the mark.
Maybe just a bad joke.
That's actually something we did talk about. That was one of Nick's segments on our show this week too.
Very nice. Yeah, so I just thought that was something fun to put. Hopefully Notre Dame will be able to suit up for Saturday. Hopefully they don't all get executed.
On the camera, yes.
We'll see if they show up next week.
Yeah. So let's hop right into all of the games. And
all right, I have the numbers right here.
You got to start on Thursday night, the Cowboys and the Buccaneers. Jacob, go ahead with the numbers.
Buccaneers are an 8-point favorite, over under 52, or not talk about the over too much, but 8-point favorite. I'm really torn on this one because I do think the Cowboys have a lot to prove week one. And Tom Brady typically doesn't start fast. I'm actually going to go with the Cowboys +8. I don't think they're going to win, but I think it's going to be a little bit closer than people think, even with the Zach Martin injury. So I'm going to go Cowboys +8. I think it's going to be a close game. So that's my pick.
I can't help but go with the Buccaneers here. I just think they've got too much going on, too much already ready coming out of last year. I know it's week one and a whole amount of preparation with Tom Brady not playing in the preseason, but the weapons that they have that they can just roll out from the start. I think the Cowboys, if anything, are more of a notorious, we need to get a lot together before we get a push going here. They're always fighting for the last 2 weeks for a wild card spot or for the division because the division's garbage.
Yeah.
Whatever it may be, they're never in a comfortable position. I think Dallas is going to come out a little bit slower considering they didn't have Dak last year too. There's going to be a point of in-game adaptability. And obviously that kind of trickles down into getting Zeke back. Zeke was not the same last year. You got to get him back into what he was. You got to get CeeDee Lamb acclimated in continuing to learn. You can't be able to stunt his growth. So I think there's going to be a slight amount there, and I just can't help but go with the Buccaneers here.
Yeah, because of the Buccaneers' defense, it kind of scares me for Dallas's offense. They've got a great defensive line, great corners. I mean, they're just solid all around on the defense. And then the Cowboys, I don't know if we remember last season, but the Cowboys' defense, you could do anything you wanted against them. Yeah. So I would take the Bucs as well, and I believe they cover the spread for sure.
Yeah, the reason I do agree the Bucs are going to win this game. I think they're going to be controlled a lot. But we saw last year the Cowboys made a valiant effort with Prescott in. They always made a valiant effort to try and come back. We got the cat about to hit the camera. And I think the game's going to be like most of the game. The Buccaneers are going to be up by multiple scores, but I just feel like they're going to score a late touchdown and bring it within 7. I think the final score will be like 38-24, then all of a sudden it's 38-31 final score. That's why I'm picking the Cowboys. A full touchdown is a big spread, especially for a team that when Dak Prescott was in, they were in every single game. They didn't win every game, but they were close. So that's why I'm picking the Cowboys.
Are you predicting the bad break here? Like the Hail Mary to break the over-under, the spread?
I wouldn't say a Hail Mary, but I'd say a last-second drive that doesn't really matter with like a minute left. And it's like they get a touchdown. It probably won't be a Hail Mary, but I do believe because the Cowboys were really good in the fourth quarter last year with Prescott. So
yeah, I think it's going to be a shootout for sure.
Yeah.
I think it'll definitely go over the over-under, whatever that may be. So the Cowboys players to watch out for. Excuse me. The Dallas Cowboys players to watch out for. You got Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott, Amari Cooper, and CeeDee Lamb. All fantasy people that you probably are starting. Dak is projected 32 points. Zeke is projected just under 15 at 14.9. Amari Cooper, 15.4. And CeeDee Lamb, 15.3. Do you fade any of those players going against Tampa?
No, I actually buff Elliott because I feel like if they're behind their throw, they use Elliott in the pass game a lot more. I think Elliott can have a lot of catches this game. I don't know how he's going to do in the running game, but if he scores a touchdown and gets like 6 or 7 catches, it's going to be a good fantasy day for him, and that's what I think he'll do.
All right.
Yeah, I've got no means to fade. I think they're going to be down in this game, and they're going to need all swings of offense here.
Gotcha. And then the Buccaneers players, obviously Tom Brady. I actually have him in my rankings, which you can find in our links as well, I have him ranked as the top quarterback for this week. As I alluded to earlier, the Cowboys' passing defense specifically was atrocious last year. So I think he's going to be great. Then you got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown. So of those three, fun question, who do you think is the top receiver out of those three for this week?
Well, now we can't talk about based on value, because we always say Antonio Brown's the best value where he's going. But I honestly think Mike Evans is Brady's favorite target. I mean, I don't know how he feels about Godwin. I know he likes Brown. I know he likes Gronk. I know he likes Evans. He hasn't really said anything about Godwin. But I like Mike Evans. I think he probably can get multiple touchdowns this game if it's a shootout, because he's the touchdown machine in that team. But I also do like Antonio Brown this game as well. I think Antonio Brown might lead in receiving, but I think Mike Evans will have multiple touchdowns.
For sure.
I think Godwin's actually going to be my pick there. I think Evans is at a point of struggles coming up over the last year or two here. Originally, at one point, it was just against players like Marshawn Lattimore that he just could not overcome. But you saw that glimpse and come through a little bit more against other teams last year. And I think that's going to go forward again this year as it gives Godwin, a younger guy, a chance to progress in that. And even while being hurt, he still came through with 84 targets, 65 catches, and had 7 touchdowns. Yeah. I mean, before and after, it was all there. But especially after, there was never a point when he had less than 6 targets. And that was only one of the games. Otherwise, he had at least 7 going forward. 2 of his touchdowns at the end of the year there as well. I think he's a notable push. I think he's going to be the underrated guy, even if Evans is the guy that they say, hey, we think he might still be Brady's one. Yeah. That's only going to attract more coverage. And now that they're kind of going hype up Brown like this, the way they have the last couple of days here, and say he's just like he was a couple years ago. Well, that's great. I'm glad for him. But again, that's going to attract more attention. You're going to have Godwin wide open right at the seam.
Yeah, I felt like Evans too many times last year was pretty touchdown dependent. Mm-hmm. But I honestly think out of the slot, Antonio Brown will see the most targets, and I believe that will make him the top receiver. I'd say 7 to 8 catches for Brown and possibly a touchdown. So I think he's going to be that top guy for the Bucs. But I guess we'll see. So pick-wise, we all chose Buccaneers.
Yeah, pick-wise, but I'm going to pick the Cowboys against the spread.
Gotcha. So now we'll shift into Sunday morning. First game, the Jaguars and Texans.
Okay. I pulled up a different game. Just give me 1 second. I just went in order of that. Okay, so Jaguars Texans is what we're talking about next. Here we go. So the Jaguars are favored by 3. This is in Houston. As we talked about Tyrod Taylor starting. I feel like when the spread is this low, I'm just going to go with who I think is going to win. So I'm going to go with the Jaguars -3. I think it's going to be Trevor Lawrence is going to be pretty hyped up. He's going to want to do well. And I think this is a very good opportunity to do well. Plus, I just, like I've said before, I don't see what the Texans have going for them.
Right.
Tyrod Taylor is not, he's a starting quarterback. He's probably top 32, but he's probably towards he's closer to 30 than he is to 20, I would say. So I'm gonna go with the Jaguars -3. Again, usually when the spread's this low, I don't really. It's very hard for me to just go against the spread when I just pick who I think is gonna win the game.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'd agree. I don't think there's a ton that you can even say you have potential on the Texans at this point. I don't think Tyrod Taylor's going to come out and completely flop and get 0-0-0-0 across his line. But I do think he's going to have a really tough time going against just running into a brick wall in order to do anything here. On the defensive side, the Jacksonville Jaguars they don't really have anything of note there.
They're definitely
to stop
not
them.
The team of years ago.
Yeah, they don't have anything really to stop them there necessarily. But on the offensive side, if you have a quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, you have a running back in James Robinson, plus arguably more, you have receivers that are usable, especially in Laviska Shenault, who's looking to break out this year. I don't see how they don't have at least one of those score any points. Right. And even if this is a 7-0 game, I'm taking the Jaguars.
For sure. Yeah, I think the Jags, and they cover the spread. I'd even venture to say the Jags put the work on the Texans and make it a pretty embarrassing game for the Texans.
I would say Trevor Lawrence is my quote-unquote like surprise pick of the week for quarterback. I think he's going to have a really good game.
Yep.
Especially because it's week 1, he's really hyped up, and I think he's going to... Usually with quarterbacks, if you've noticed, with rookie quarterbacks, even if they don't have a good career, they always have a good week 1.
Yeah.
It seems like. Even Trubisky, against the Vikings a couple years ago, he had a good game in the week 1, and obviously didn't pan out, but I think he's going to have a really good game week 1. I think it's going to be a lot of hype.
Yeah, so speaking of Lawrence, he's projected for 26. Then you have James Robinson at 16.2. Laviska Shenault as the top receiver at 12.2. Then Marvin Jones at 11.9. And DJ Chark at 11.5. I think you should invest in Jaguar stock this week for fantasy football. I believe I have Lawrence somewhere in my top 15. I don't believe a lot of people have him as their starting quarterback this year yet. Do you think after week 1, if he has a game like Jacob says, and your starting quarterback, whoever it may be, doesn't have as good of a game, do you see people making that switch after week 1 and he's more of a rostered starting quarterback?
See, it depends on who they are. Like, obviously, I personally wouldn't. I would see his matchup before I play it. But I do think if he's a good week 1, people who are just going to be like, oh, it's going to be like every week, start. But obviously, people who like understand a little bit more, it's like it is the Texans, and that's one of the weaker team, probably the weakest team in the NFL.
Yeah.
So I honestly, I would still hesitate. But as far as the wide receivers goes, I'm definitely going to hesitate on that to see who is his favorite target, because I think any of those 3 could be his favorite target.
Yeah.
All 3 of them are very similar in skill, I think. So definitely, I have DJ Chark. I'm benching him this week because I don't know who his favorite. Because it could, like we saw last year with Justin Herbert, he didn't care about Mike Williams. He just threw to Keenan Allen all the time.
Yeah.
And that could be the same way with Trevor Lawrence with one of these receivers. It's hard to tell which one though.
Yeah, until they play that first game. So then on the Texans side, you got Tyrod Taylor. Phillip Lindsay is projected as the highest back for them, and then Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks is really good. Is he somebody you would possibly flex this week, regardless of, it being Tyrod Taylor as a starter?
Yeah, I think they're going to need to, again, it's another one where they're going to need to have any sort of offense flowing, whether it's there or not. The targets are going to be there. The opportunity is there. And that's all you need in fantasy. So Cooks is probably the only one on this team that I would even consider starting. And that depends on your outlook of who else you have there at that flex spot.
Right.
But I would heavily consider Cooks, absolutely. And that's another thing is taking him in the first week, maybe 2 weeks, because they play Denver. But by the time you get through 2 weeks, if he has any sort of performance, I'd be looking to flip him as soon as possible.
Yeah. I think the volume will be there for him because they don't really have a whole lot of other options. I mean, they signed Amendola, so he might see a few targets, but Brandon Cooks has been heavily targeted, whether Will Fuller's been there or not, and now he's not, so I think he gets a healthy share of targets this week.
I just feel bad for Texans fans because like 3 or 4 years ago, I thought Adam was my Super Bowl pick. The year after Watson's rookie year, I thought they were going to win the Super Bowl because he looked amazing. And they had J.J. Watt, they had DeAndre Hopkins, and yeah, now it's just a mess.
Yeah, it's not looking good for them. All right, so again, all of us picked Jags. We got Chargers and Washington next. Pretty excited about this. I have quite a bit of stock in both these teams.
The split is even 0-0, so pick, and I think that's pretty fair.
Yeah.
I think that's very fair. I'm going to go with Washington. First, rookie head coaches in their first game don't really do well unless you're unless you're Ron Rivera last year, who was just shocked everyone. But it's also in Washington, and I think Fitzmagic week 1, it's going to probably he always has a good week 1, it seems like. And I just think Washington's got probably the best defense in the NFL, maybe top 3 at least. And like I said, it mostly comes down to rookie head coach for the Chargers, and Fitzmagic week 1 is always on. So I'm going with Washington.
Yeah, I'd agree. I can't help but go with Washington here. I think they have a lot of potential going forward here, especially with Fitzpatrick going and actually at the helm for this team. It's not just a guess of, well, they have pieces, but not anyone to get it there. This is a point where they are really looking to put a lot together this year. Antonio Gibson is going to be fantastic this year. Terry McLaurin is arguably going to be a steal coming out of the 3rd round. someone I'm excited for is actually De'Ami Brown, the rookie that they had
Heard a
taken.
lot about
He had fallen, I believe, to the third round. And he's looking to possibly have a role right away as long as he can serve Adam Humphries at some point this year.
Yeah.
He has shown out in the preseason in that camp, and I think he could be an exciting player in this offense.
And something else that will help him is if Curtis Samuel continues to deal with the groin injury that he's been dealing with throughout preseason. So my girlfriend, she does like a weekly pick'em for her job, and you have to give a confidence rating 1 through 16 or whatever. This is a game that it was lowest on my confidence scale. Did not know which way it was going to go. I ended up picking Washington, as I will right now, just because they've got a stellar defense. They have all the pieces to have a great offense this year. I love the Chargers. Their offense is also great, but defensively, I don't see them as strong as Washington. So I would choose Washington as well.
Because I actually had the same exact story. I had to make some picks this week, and I believe I had this as my third pick, and I did take Washington too. It was the upset pick, given the value of who's being taken more. It was like 80% Chargers, and I can't understand fully why.
I think it's
the Justin Herbert hype.
Yeah, I think it's just everyone knows what the Chargers offense looks like because it's pretty much all the same pieces. And now it's a bunch of new pieces in Washington, but
you're also going up against the number one defense in
Yeah.
the Washington football team versus not the number one defense.
And honestly, I think we'll see, but I think Chase Young at the end of the year, we're going to say he's the best defensive player in the league because Aaron Donald's getting up there in age, and I think Chase Young right now he's third after him and T.J. Watt.
He's a stud.
He's up there. Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah, and I did not realize also when I was drafting, I wasn't playing matchups or anything. I wanted Washington's defense, so I took them. I also picked up Justin Herbert, so had some problems with that. I ended up actually picking up the Jaguars defense against the Texans, and that's who I'm going to play, just to not have any conflict there. You got Herbert at 26.7 points, Austin Eckler at 15.1, and Keenan Allen at 15.1. Fitzmagic at 25.6, which, as you said, I think he's going to obliterate that projection. Antonio Gibson at 16.2, McLaurin at 15.3, and Logan Thomas at 10.5. How high are we on Logan Thomas?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I think Logan Thomas will probably have a good year. But the one issue is Fitzpatrick doesn't really throw to the tight ends as much as other. He kind of is just a gunslinger, which is why I love that I have Terry McLaurin on my team. But going back to the confidence pick that you guys said, I would have it a lot higher. I think this is a really bad spot for the Chargers because, like I said, Ryan Fitzpatrick always does go well week one, and this is a very, very good defense, and it's a rookie head coach. Like Justin Herbert's amazing against the blitz, which he had a 99 QBR against the blitz last year, which is ridiculous as a rookie. But I still think this is a bad spot for the Chargers. I just really like all of the offensive pieces I think Washington's Washington win this pretty easily. Actually, I have high confidence in Washington in this game.
All right. Next up, we will go to the Seahawks at the Colts.
Is Carson Wentz starting? I can't figure. I can't try to find that.
It still hasn't been confirmed, but I would assume so. They activated him, and he's been practicing, so I would assume so. He'll probably end up being a game-time decision, though.
So this is in Indianapolis, and Seattle is a 2.5-point favorite. I'm going to go with Seattle. Russell Wilson, very good at the beginning of the year. Every year, by week 5, we say, how hasn't this guy won MVP? And then we look at him in December, and he sucks.
Right.
I was like, well, that's why. But he always has a good start to the season, and I see no exception here. Plus, how good is Carson Wentz going to be, especially because he just had surgery in his foot, so...
Yeah. I mean, how good was Carson Wentz to begin with in the first place?
He had one good year, and I understand that he has the offensive coordinator, is the head coach of the Colts, the offensive coordinator that year, so he could be good.
Yeah.
I think this is if he's not well this year, it's done.
Yeah, but he doesn't have a whole lot weapons-wise on his offense. I mean, Jonathan Taylor, he's all right. But receiver-wise, that's just kind of all up in the air. You didn't see a lot from Michael Pittman Jr. last year. T.Y. Hilton isn't there. So just going to, again, we don't know how that offense is going to look. I don't expect it's going to look great. But yeah, I take the Seahawks here. The only concern is the Seahawks defense. Don't know how much better it got from last year, but I think the Seahawks take it pretty easily.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, if you look at just based off of last year alone, Colts have one of the top defenses last year in what they put together, and the Seahawks were kind of that mid-range as they have been since the Legion of Boom era.
Yeah.
But it's no comparison in terms of offensive weapons. You're bringing everyone back, plus more in Gerald Everett with the Seahawks this year, along with Metcalf, along with Lockett, Chris Carson obviously being healthy and arguably better than ever. It's a great point for them to just stride forward on. You just have so many questions on the Colts. I mean, Jonathan Taylor, I think, is going to be fantastic. I think Hines is a great weapon. Pittman, I think, has a lot of potential, but it's just not a lot of day one guys that you're going to see go up and step out and just blow everyone up.
Right. Yeah. So for the Seahawks, you got Russell Wilson, 28 points. Chris Carson at 13.4, which I think could be a little better. DK Metcalf at 16.7 and Tyler Lockett at 14.5. Carson Wentz sitting at 23.2, Jonathan Taylor at 16.3, and Michael Pittman as the top receiver at 10.3. I think if you're going to start anything for the Colts, just needs to be Jonathan Taylor. You draw the line at that. And start everybody for the Seahawks offense.
Tyler Lockett would be the only one, but I think this is going to be one of his good games. Last year, it seemed like he either one week he got like 45 points against the Cardinals. He had like 3 touchdowns and like 12 receptions. It was ridiculous. And then the other weeks he had 0 points.
Yeah,
he had 90% of his points last year from 4 games.
Yeah, that's insane. This might be one of his games, but I just like. Obviously, I don't know my team. I think Metcalf's just a much safer pick. The dude's a monster. Russell Wilson has said that he, I believe last year, after the Vikings game, when they won on the last second, that he actually said he thinks DK Metcalf will be as good as Jerry Rice. Obviously, it's a little hyped up.
Yeah.
But I mean, Russell Wilson's a pretty reliable quarterback to say that. So I mean, I think Metcalf's gonna have a monster year, and I think obviously he's gonna have a good week 1 because Russell Wilson always is really good in the beginning of the season. So I really like the Seahawks in this game for sure.
Yeah, my favorite thing I've heard about Tyler Lockett over the past year and a half or so is he's consistently inconsistent. Which, I mean, you couldn't sum it up any better, to be honest. All right, so let's move on to the Jets versus the Panthers.
Pull that up. So this is some interest. Panthers are a 5-point favorite. This is in Carolina. And, you know, both these teams are very interesting because I think both of them are going to be a little bit better than people think, but not way better. Like the Jets, everyone's saying the Jets are going to be one of the worst teams. I mean, they might, but I don't think they're going to be that bad. Like I said, rookie quarterback's always a good start. Panthers have Sam Darnold. I think this is one of the more difficult ones, but I'm going to go with Carolina -5. I think they're going to cover the spread. I think the Panthers offense is going to be very good this year, where the Jets offense will struggle a bit. I think the Jets defense is actually a little underrated. They did really well at the end of last year. Granted, they have a lot of injuries right now, so that's not helping. But I think they're going to be fine. But I think this game, I think the Panthers are going to win -5.
All right.
Yeah, it's another one that I just can't help but agree on. Even if it was just Christian McCaffrey alone versus the Jets, I would have to take him in this one. And it's hard because this is one of the harder matchups of the week where it could, in theory, go either way. But Sam Darnold has the experience Zach Wilson doesn't. I mean, even if Zach Wilson ends up better than Sam Darnold at the end of the year, you're talking week 1 here.
Yeah.
It's a lot to walk into. It just the overall matchup there. You got McCaffrey versus Tevin Coleman that's starting for them at this point because they have a mess at running back with Michael Carter and Ty Johnson, as well as the Michael Piran when he gets back.
And Tevin Coleman.
Yeah. I mean, Tevin Coleman's starting. Corey Davis and Keelan Cole is what they have anymore. Braxton Berrios, Jamison Crowder, Elijah Moore. They're adding up.
Berrios, so
no, even better yet. I mean, I'm just trying to scrape up any sort of names here.
Right.
And they've got a lot of potential in guys like Elijah Moore, who I like. I think he's good. But you just match that with Terrace Marshall, DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson. There's just more weapons there, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Panthers came out and just shot a blank and didn't do a dang thing with what they have, because that's what they've been since they lost Cam Newton. Basically, since that fumble in the Super Bowl, he has not been the same, and ultimately it kind of rides down into the Panthers too. since that moment. They've got pieces. They can put things together. They can flash whatever they want, but it's just never going to be a full piece again.
Yeah, another favorite thing I have seen in the past week or so is that Von Miller essentially ended Cam Newton's career with that fumble.
Yeah.
And the Panthers, apparently. I would take the Panthers as well. I'm not a huge Sam Darnold fan. I have not been a fan since he was drafted. But if you look at a lot of the players who start out with Adam Gase or play with Adam Gase as their coach, and then they leave that situation, they blow up and they do great things. So I think he's coming into a great situation. He's got a plethora of, he's got a plethora of weapons to use. And the Jets, whatever weapons they do have, like you said, it's just inexperienced. And I think the Jets are going to take quite a few weeks to actually fit everything together if they do it all this year.
If there was a game this week that I had to lose, I'd be happy for it to be this one. Because I like Zach Wilson. I want him to develop into something, not just because, it's the Jets and be different. I like Zach Wilson. I think he's got a lot of raw talent. If he can put anything together and have an even decent year this first year, it'd be fantastic for him going forward.
Yeah, and everyone's really down on Zach Wilson. Oh, he got drafted by the Jets. He's done. Well, it's not necessarily the case. Obviously Trevor Lawrence is better. Trevor Lawrence is in another bad situation. He has better offensive weapons, but the Jets have a little better, more defensive weapons than the Jaguars. So I'm rooting for Zach Wilson. I actually am a big fan of Sam Darnold. Granted, he's not really helping his case with the way he played in New York, but again, I'm really rooting for him. He was my number one quarterback in that draft. I think he was a lot of people's number one quarterback. Obviously, he's clearly number 4 now because that was Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson. But I'm rooting for him. I think if he doesn't do well this year, then it's it for him.
Yeah.
Is this the least exciting revenge game that you've ever seen from a quarterback?
Probably, actually.
I can't think of anything more.
So here's the thing. Sam Darnold and Robbie Anderson both played for the Jets with each other, so it's a combo revenge game. But still not too excited about it. I'm mostly excited to see Christian McCaffrey actually playing again.
Is this in New York?
It's in
Carolina.
It's in Carolina.
Oh, okay. Well, that would have been
a little more interesting.
Fun, but
so Panthers.
Definitely looking forward to seeing McCaffrey, though. That's the biggest thing that you can take from this game.
And I don't have to play him week 1, so until I have to play him in fantasy, I'm good. Yeah. He is supposed to be the top running back this week with 21.4 points, which is more than a lot of receivers, even inside the top 10. So, smash play there. We got the Vikings and Bengals next. Another game that I had a bit of trouble picking.
Vikings are -3. It's in Cincinnati, though.
Yeah.
Come back to me. I have to think. Do you have an idea, Dustin?
Yeah, I think this is actually going to be a Bengals pick for me. It's a team trending up versus a team trending down. You got Joe Burrow coming back. That's the big storyline here, and that's great. I think he's going to be just fine. He's had plenty of time. It's not like he was cutting it short to be, is he going to be ready? He's been ready for a while. They've got plenty of weapons. There's not a lot of people that I am lower on than the majority, than Joe Mixon. I've never been a Joe Mixon fan. I just can't help but continue that here. I'll save you the theatrics. I just can't get around him. I think Chris Evans, mark my words here, Chris Evans is going to have a big role at some point this year.
Movie actor?
Captain America?
Yes. Fantasy names will be named for him as soon as he's in. Trust me, it will be a swing. But even outside of that, just purely alone, you got Joe Burrow along with T. Higgins, who's building himself after a great first year. You got Tyler Boyd, who's already very established and a big touchdown threat every single week. On top of that, you got their first pick with Jamar Chase. Even with his struggles, his drops, whatever, that's your third receiver that you're going with.
I've heard he's had a really good week in camp. So
perfect.
And T. Higgins also had a really bad start last year in preseason as well, and he was amazing last year.
Yeah, it's a lot of smoke and mirrors right now for sure with him, but whether he comes through or not, you still have so many weapons there, and they have enough people with the run game to get by against a Vikings defense that has a lot to be desired for. Again, they're on the big downhill here. They don't have the line that they used to have. They don't have the corners that they used to have. They don't really have anyone they used to have. Kirk Cousins has just been up and down. Obviously, he missed time in the preseason with the whole COVID issue. Dalvin Cook is coming off of another season with injury, not to say that he ended it on injury, but it's always a threat with him at this point, unfortunately. And unfortunately for the Vikings, too, the guy that they thought they had to just sub right in be one of the best handcuffs in the league, and Alexander Madison is no longer that. He has had 3 opportunities now, I believe, to prove that, and is just stalled out completely. Yeah. Not to say he doesn't have a value, not to say he can't develop into that, but it's a lot less guaranteed than people thought at one point. Adam Thielen, yeah, he's got injuries, he's got age. He's still going to have a role. He might still do well this year, that's fine. Honestly, there's not one person on this Vikings team outside of Dalvin Cook that I am super, super confident in with their current ADP. Because with Justin Jefferson as well, you're taking him 2nd or 3rd round, matching with guys almost in the DK Metcalf area. That's crazy. There's no way that you can... I mean, you're taking them at max value of last year. And I don't think this team is even where it was last year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to go with the Bengals. The only reason I'm hesitant is because I have heard that Joe Burrow is not 100% yet. He says he's 100%, but Joe Burrow is someone that is very good at wanting to play. Like he clearly wants to play, even though he doesn't show it, because that dude shows no emotion ever.
Oh, he's a robot.
I know, but I will say I'm probably gonna go with the Bengals here at home. I think there's gonna be a lot of hype around Joe Burrow. He was amazing last year. He's got. I want to say this is gonna be a shootout, but any game with Kirk Cousins, it's hard to say it's gonna be a shootout. But I think any game with the Bengals might lead to a shootout. I think it's going to be a pretty high-scoring game, not too high. I think Dalvin Cook is going to be a monster this week, but I don't really know how Thielen or Jefferson will be. I'm going to go with the Bengals. It's a tough one, though. This is my toughest decision yet, for sure.
So, I agree it's going to be a shootout, I think. But I'm taking the Vikings. The Bengals offense, so I got to fill everybody in on my take on Joe Mixon, because I had to go into it with somebody at Twitter about Joe Mixon that, Gio Bernard isn't there anymore. Joe Mixon's going to get so many more targets in the passing game, yada, yada. Look, just because Gio Bernard isn't there doesn't mean Joe Mixon's going to be involved in the passing game magically. He hasn't been, and they brought in Jamar Chase. Now they have 3 people who can actually catch the football. Joe Mixon isn't going to magically just start getting targets and receptions. It's not going to happen. But, again, I'm going to fade Joe Burrow this week. He's been playing scared is the word from camp. Not necessarily 100% confident. And I like the Vikings offense. They don't have Irv Smith or... Tyler Conklin this week.
They signed Chris Herndon from the Jets.
Chris Herndon, yeah. Super excited about that. But Dalvin Cook is a monster. He's going to be a monster. He's going to do very well this week. And then without a tight end taking up targets, Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen are going to inherit those targets. Some will go to Dalvin Cook, but Dalvin Cook already gets his share of targets anyway. And I think Adam Thielen down in the red zone is going to be Adam Thielen down in the red zone like he was last year. And I think a lot of targets are going to go Justin Jefferson's way. And I don't see anybody on the Bengals defense who can adequately cover these guys for the entire game.
What about my boy Chad Beebe from NAU? He's their slot receiver.
You know, every once in a while he'll get in there and get a few catches. But I think this comes down to I like the Vikings offense better against the Bengals defense than I do the Bengals offense at all. And I think the Bengals are going to have a great offense this year, but I just don't think it's going to happen week one. So I'm taking the Vikings.
This is definitely a tough one. Yeah, this is my toughest pick so far.
I wouldn't be surprised if it went either way, even with my confidence in the Bengals there.
This is one that I'm definitely rooting for the Bengals because of the Joe Burrow redemption story, and also I'm a Bears fan. Don't want the Vikings to win, obviously. But I could see it going either way.
Yeah.
What's the next game you got?
Next game up is the Cardinals and Titans.
So this is in Tennessee, and the Titans are a 3-point favorite. Yeah, this is a very, very difficult game.
Yeah, a lot of hype in this game, though. It's a storyline game.
Mm-hmm. Man, this is. I mean, this is a very difficult one. I think both these teams are going to have a hot start to the year. Yikes. I don't even know, man. I really have no idea.
I believe this was, for what it's worth, in terms of the confidence picks,
16.
The lowest one.
This is I'm gonna go with the against the spread. It's gonna be really close. I'm gonna go with the Cardinals against the spread. I'm not gonna say who I think is gonna win because I really don't know. But last year the Cardinals surprised the 49ers in Week 1 in San Francisco, and I think the 49ers Week 1 last year are probably better than the Titans Week 1 this year. Although the Titans, have Derrick Henry, obviously. They got Julio Jones. This is a really tough one, but the Cardinals, Kyler Murray wasn't necessarily healthy towards the end of last year, and now he's going to be fully healthy. They got J.J. Watt. They still have Chandler Jones, and obviously they have DeAndre Hopkins. I'm going to go with the Cardinals. That's it. I'm not changing my pick. Because I really have no idea who's going to win this game.
What was the spread in this one?
Titans -3. So I'm just going to go with the slight spread for the Cardinals.
Sure.
So it's good. Yeah, it's a tough one though.
I think I'm gonna go with the Titans here. Actually, the bigger reasoning there. I know there's between the two. There's probably more potential, especially if you're looking long term in the Cardinals. But Week 1, as you're putting it together, I think they really need to establish what is going on in their run game. In terms of the Cardinals, they're starting Chase Edmonds. Are they starting James Conner? Are they starting both? How is that going? I think they need to work a lot of that out in terms of what could be one of their most important aspects of their game this year, especially in that division. They got 6 automatic hard games every single year with how the teams are right now because they play the Niners twice, the Seahawks twice, the Rams twice. All those defenses are great. I mean, if not next level, 2 of those 3 outside of the Seahawks anymore are fantastic top 10, if not top 5 defenses anymore. That's a lot to go up against, and that's a lot of time you have to waste. You can only do that to throwing to DeAndre Hopkins so many times.
Yeah,
you're just not going to be able to do a ton there. So I'm going to have to lean to the Titans purely because Derrick Henry is the established role. On top of that, they can still throw. Figure out what they're going to do with Julio Jones, but they've already got A.J. Brown. Tannehill's coming in with a lot of momentum. Their defense has looked great and only added players this offseason again. By all means, I don't think it's going to be any sort of a blowout. I just think even if it comes down to the end of the game, the team that can run out the clock is going to make the difference.
I think it'll be a fairly close game as well. But I just want to talk about the Titans. And I think they have an offense that should be considered a high-powered offense. Tannehill isn't a gunslinger, this or that, but he is very, very consistent. He's got 2 of the best receivers in the league and Derrick Henry behind him that will run for 100 yards in a game and take a lot of the pressure off of the passing game. They are a well-oiled machine. I think that offense is going to be very hard to stop unless they go against, some of those top defenses. I think the Cardinals are making steps and strides towards having a better defense, but like you said, with the running back situation, I think it's going to end up being a committee situation. But I just think
both have a role for sure. It's just a matter of who's starting, who's doing what. Is one just the catch back? Is one just the goal line back? Are we both running twice? And what it seemed to be in the preseason was James Conner actually running once, and then Edmonds running once, and then Conner running twice. That doesn't help you at all.
Right. I think the Titans in this one, and I just want to say to look out for the Titans' offense this year. I think they've got one of the best offenses in the league in terms of talent. So now we will move on to the 49ers and
one more
the
thing in that
Lions.
game as well, just to go back before you get into it. This is a team that you are playing a 3-4 defense in the Titans. And I do want to correct myself as well. I did say that the Bucs were a 4-3, they're a 3-4. They do come from that outside. And in terms of containment against a running quarterback like Kyler Murray, that's exactly what you're going to be needing. As he tries to roll out, they're going to be pressing and squeezing in as long as they can do even remotely close to their job. Not to say you're going to contain him because he is a force. I mean, don't get me wrong, Kyler is crazy. But it's not a good matchup.
Yeah. All right.
Also, I like Derrick Henry a lot fantasy-wise.
Oh,
Absolutely.
yeah, for sure. Regardless of standard PPR, half PPR.
Yeah, J.J. Watt and Chandler Jones, you still got them on the line. That's great, but you don't even need a hole for Derrick Henry to get through to have a good game.
He makes his own holes. All right.
I think fantasy aside, I think he's the best running back, but he obviously doesn't catch the passes. Him and McCaffrey are close. They're different running backs, so it's difficult. But I think just as a runner, he's clearly the best.
Yeah, for sure. So 49ers and Lions. This one looks like it's going to be pretty large spread.
49ers are a 7.5-point favorite in Detroit, and yeah, I'm going with the 49ers. I mean, this is my survivor pick.
Okay.
If the 49ers lose, that would just be disastrous. Because they have all their players. Like last year, you could say, okay, we had a lot of injuries, but even last year, with all the injuries, they probably would beat the Lions, even with Matt Stafford. But now the Lions don't have Matt Stafford. They don't have Kenny Galladay. They don't have Marvin Jones either.
Yeah.
They have T.J. Hawkinson and Jared Goff, who's arguably just a system of Sean McVay. Obviously the Lions cover the spread. I don't think they will. If the 49ers lose this game, that is just got to be a gut punch to them. What the hell? I understand it's in Detroit, but still.
Yeah,
they're my survivor pick.
I think this is an ugly game. I think anybody who starts a 49ers player in fantasy will be happy. And hopefully Lions fans don't cry. But they might. I know
one of my friends from college is a Lions fan. He always admits how terrible they are. So he's understanding.
Yeah, so 49ers.
Not to mention, Penei Sewell is starting to look like really bad in camp. He's starting to already look like a bust, people are saying. So.
But the Niners, their offense, so many weapons, like you said earlier, one of those top defenses. And if the Lions literally had anyone, I mean, DeAndre Swift is banged up, and T.J. Hawkinson, I don't know how much he's going to, factor in without Matt Stafford throwing him the football. So I don't see this even as a contest.
Yeah, there's one person in terms of fantasy that I would even look at starting in this game for the Lions, and that's Jamal Williams. I mean, obviously, if DeAndre Swift, if he's playing, you're starting him. But Jamal Williams is someone in terms of a flex that I would start. Hawkinson, he's a shoe-in. So I take that back. But in terms of skill position, I'm not starting a receiver on this team. But Jamal Williams, I'd feel pretty comfortable as a flex, possibly. Again, depending on what your options are. If you are going with the one that I was between before, would you start Brandon Cooks or Jamal Williams?
Jamal Williams, for sure.
That's where I'm at, too, especially with Swift not being 100% going in. And, if anything, with no practice week one, Jamal Williams is established. They love him on this team. Dan Campbell's raved about him. I think he's going to have a solid role this year, not just week one. I'm confident in that. And even on the other side of that, people are just so weird this year with the Niners running game. And I don't know what I'm missing. Because I like Trey Sermon. Don't tell me that I don't. But I don't think he's going to be the role that everybody thinks he's suddenly going to walk into. I think Raheem Mostert is the guy. He will be the guy until otherwise known.
Until he gets hurt.
I have Trey Sermon on my team. I'm not starting him until Mostert's hurt or they for sure get Sermon number one. Actually, Sermon is my surprise running back of the week. I think he's going to have a big game because it's week one. He's going to be the starter against the Lions. He had a big game. He had big games last week. Did I say Sermon? I meant
Mostert. Okay.
I meant Mostert. I'm sorry.
I got you.
I was surprised.
No. Trey Sermon, I think will do a little. I think he'll have more touches than most running backs as number two because of Kyle Shanahan. But I like Mostert a lot in this game because I think he's going to start the year for sure number one, and it's a great opponent for him to start against.
Yeah, and Mostert is, especially for fantasy, he's a big play guy. So I am.
He's the fastest back in the league, if not the fastest player in the league.
Oh, for sure. I mean, even last year when he got hurt in their third drive, it was okay for fantasy because he had already scored an 80-yard touchdown.
My biggest flaw with the whole Trey Sermon ordeal is that even in previous years, you say that, they play multiple running backs. Yeah, they do. That's traditionally known. But you can't just say that suddenly if Mostert does happen to get hurt again, that Trey Sermon is going to run away with it and he's going to be the only back after that. That seems to be the common mantra and the common thought.
Right.
And I don't think that's legit because even in previous years, Mostert, as soon as he came back, the minute he was back, he had a huge role again. And I think that's acting as a depth chart would. You have your RB1, you have your RB2. Yeah, you'll play them both.
Yeah.
But I just don't see Trey Sermon having more than Mostert in any point this year unless he's hurt. And through the first half of the year, I would take Mostert as my MVP throughout all of fantasy. I think he's got such a value in such an underrated point. He's going in like the 8th round of fantasy drafts. He's a starting caliber back. He's the fastest in the league on a huge, powerful offense and a team that's going to be winning. You can't get much a better combination than that.
Yeah, I definitely disagree with the people that are starting Sermon now. Like I said, I only have him on the bench because, I usually pick up backups of running backs that were hurt the year before. Mm-hmm. It sometimes works out, sometimes doesn't. So obviously with Mostert, but I really agree that Mostert's got this backfield, and in terms of the game, I don't think this one's going to be close.
And then I just think there's so much with Sermon, even coming in from college. He didn't have that impressive of a college season either. There's not a ton to say that he has a ton.
It was the last 2 or 3 games. It was the Big Ten championship, their first playoff win, and the national championship that he did anything.
I should say, stat-wise, yes.
Yeah, but
outside of that, and when you get into the offseason, when you get into any sort of pro day or anything in camp, it was just kind of there. Yeah, he had his hype, and yeah, he was the role that you knew that he was going to be a running back in this offense. Right. He could have a role going in. Great. But he was slow. He ran like a 4.61 at his pro day. He did not show any ability to outrun anyone. You are looking at the fastest back versus a guy that's on a downhill running 4.61. That to me is just a huge difference and way too big for me to overcome right away.
Last thing for this game, who is going to be the top 49ers receiver? You have a lot of hype around Brandon Ayuk.
George Kittle, can
yes, he's in their pass catcher, I'll say.
Mm-hmm.
Deebo Samuel, who I am higher on than Ayuk to start out at least, and then you have Kittle, obviously. Who's going to be that top guy?
I don't know. I really am not sure. Probably George Kittle, but here's the thing. I feel like this game might turn into the NFC Championship game 2 years ago where they just run the ball. They don't even need to throw the ball. I just think that the 49ers are going to do whatever they want on offense. And Garoppolo is probably going to have 14 points. That's even being generous.
Yeah, they'll have 2 drives where they throw, maybe 3 because Ayuk will catch a screen and take it to the house.
Yeah.
And Garoppolo will get the points for it. I mean, I'm taking Ayuk in this one just for that reason. I don't think there's any reason they're going to have to pass. I'm not a big Deebo Samuel guy in comparison of Ayuk. I think Ayuk has bigger potential going forward as the underrated second guy and the big play guy. If they're running out games and they need to have a pass, every time he touches the ball, he can take it there.
Outside of Mostert, my favorite fantasy pick for this game, and not just because I have them, is the 49ers defense.
Oh, yeah.
I think they're going to have a monster game.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I literally picked him for week 1. That's why I picked him in the draft.
Right.
When you also got Bosa back, so going forward, it's a good long-term pick as well.
So out of those 3, I think Ayuk and Samuel both can be involved in the running game as well. You saw that last year. I want to say Samuel because I like him more, but I think Ayuk, in this game at least, will be the higher receiver. And then we already kind of talked about anything we would touch with the Lions. So let's move on to the Steelers and the Bills.
The Bills are a 6.5-point favorite at home. And I was torn on this game, and then one thing was revealed which decided it, where TJ Watt might not play. Bills 6.5. I'm just going to do it.
Did not know that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those weird things.
It's only a maybe. It wasn't for sure.
Sure. Well, but that's the thing is I specifically remember with those confidence picks or just looking at this week 1 matchups or anything like that. On paper, this seems like it would be a much better matchup than it's probably going to be.
Yeah.
That's kind of my headline for it, is that ultimately when you think about it, again, it's one trending up, one trending way, way down.
Yeah.
And they still have plenty of potential there. They still have great options in terms of offense, in terms of fantasy. Having Najee, having Deontay Johnson, Juju, James Washington, the list goes on, Claypool. Yeah, sure, they could all have a great role there, but ultimately you're against one of the best defenses, again, in the Bills. Yeah. Plus having to go and outscore Josh Allen in an offense that was absurd last year. Good luck.
The one good positive with the T.J. Watt situation is if he does play, he'll be fine. It's not injury; it's contract dispute that why he might be held out. So if he does play, it's not like he's injured.
Sure.
So, but even then, like I said, I think the Steelers will be better earlier in the year, which is why you're right. I think this game will be closer than people think, but I think it's going to be close until about the fourth quarter, and the Bills are going to run away with it. That's how I think. So I'm going to go Bills 6.5. Is that who you were going to pick?
Yep, I took the Bills for sure on this one. They just have so much going on, and you can't argue it offensively, defensively. They have it so well put together for a postseason run this year, barring injury, barring whatever may happen.
Yeah, I'm going Bills as well. I think the Steelers, I think they're going to just kind of get smacked and then pass the ball the whole time. So fantasy-wise, I would touch everything Steelers.
Yeah.
But I think the Bills, like you said, trying to outscore Josh Allen with Ben Roethlisberger seems impossible. And against a Bills defense that's scary. I mean, Tre'Davious White, top 5 corners for sure. So
in same question as the last game here, who's your pass catcher in the Steelers offense?
I'm going to go Deontay Johnson. As long as he doesn't get hurt at all, he last year cemented himself as the alpha, the top target. So when I'm picking receivers, I want somebody who's targeted a lot, and Deontay Johnson's that guy.
I agree. I mean, I just know some people are super, super high on Claypool, and they want him to be the number one, or even Juju anymore because he had that role at one point. And those guys are going to see their days. They're going to see their games, but it's not going to be consistent by any means. And especially in week 1 here, Deontay's my pick as well, but also for the season, I would say.
I would say for the season. I'm actually going to go Claypool for the season. I think he could do more, but I don't really want to, fantasy-wise, I don't really want to touch any of these receivers because it's going to be like I feel like it's going to be like the Buccaneers. One week, there's going to be some players doing amazing, and a week they're going to be terrible. Mm-hmm. I just don't know when that's going to be. I'd rather have guys that are going to be, their worst weeks are going to be like 6 catches for 76 yards, where some of the guys' worst week might be like 1 catch for 10 yards, which is...
My only defense to that is Deontay Johnson, barring any game he was injured in, with Juju and Claypool on the field, he was still that target hog of a guy. So I think regardless, he's going to see the most targets out of those 3.
Yeah, he still had 144 targets last year.
Yeah, that's an insane amount of targets. So yeah, Bills, pretty easily there.
What do you got next?
We got the Eagles and the Falcons.
All right, so this is in Atlanta, and the Falcons are a 3-point favorite. This one's difficult.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be. I think both these teams are a little better than people think. I don't think the Eagles are going to be as bad as everyone thinks. I think I almost said Jamar Chase. I think Jalen Hurts is going to be a little bit better than most people think. Now, I don't bet on rookie head coaches. Do the Falcons have the same coach they did at the end of last year, or did they get a new one?
That's a great question.
I believe it's new.
All right, so these both have new head coaches. I'm going to go with the more established quarterback at home. I'm going to go with the Falcons -3 in this situation.
Okay. I'm higher on the Eagles as a team. I just so if you look back to when Jalen Hurts started last year and how that offense ran, it was efficient, it moved the ball, it scored, and I like them a little better. Don't get me wrong, the Falcons, I love Calvin Ridley. Kyle Pitts I think is going to be great, and Mike Davis coming into a spot where, he is their guy. I think he's going to thrive as well. But the Falcons also give up a lot of points and cannot come through at the end of the game for anything. So I think the Eagles here. And what was the spread? 3?
3. So you think you're going with the Eagles?
Yeah, I think the Eagles. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to Eagles as well. They're so young. They have a lot of guys to walk in and try and develop. Yeah, they have Miles Sanders, but they also are trying to develop Kenneth Gainwell. They're trying to ultimately develop Jalen Hurts at quarterback. Rager hasn't even had the full chance yet. They got Kez Watkins walking in with a role now. Goddard's still trying to establish his role with Ertz still there and going to be there. There's a lot to figure out there, but the biggest thing is when you compare the two, it's fairly even on offense, and that's why this is so hard. Because, Matt Ryan, Jalen Hurts, Mike Davis, Miles Sanders. No one's super exciting there. Calvin Ridley, by far the best one on the field here. I have him as a top 5 receiver this year. Yeah, I think he's going to be outstanding. Russell Gage isn't a super underrated pick going at the end of drafts right now. If he's not on your team, he should be, because he's the wide receiver 2 on a team that's going to be passing all year long. Kyle Pitts, obviously a great year. It's just that when you get to the defense, you don't even recognize a name on this team anymore. Yeah. It's that bad. So purely for the remote amount of defense, regardless of what they are anymore, with Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, Darius Slay, Rodney McLeod, those guys aren't what they used to be necessarily, but they're still more of, and I don't mean this the wrong way, but no names of guys that you recognize on this Falcons defense. I would be impressed if the defense came out and made any sort of a force enough to stop them. Yeah. I don't see him being able to keep up.
One guy that you didn't mention for the Eagles, first-round draft pick Devontae Smith.
Oh, sure.
Who I think is, I
think
he's going to lead that team.
He's looked fantastic in camp. He has been separating people. He's got the speed, he's got the hands, he's got everything that people worried about. With these guys coming in, whether it's Smith or Waddle, and their size and their injuries or whatever it may be, I think both guys are going to have a huge year. But Devonta Smith is a huge look for this season in fantasy as well.
Yeah, and anybody who wants to say otherwise, the man has the hardware. Yeah. He is the Heisman winner as a wide receiver. So, by far,
he doesn't really have an NFL body. He's kind of skinny for most compared to most.
Look
receivers.
at Robbie Anderson. Robbie Anderson is a target hog for Carolina, and he's skin and bones. I mean, his arms look about as thin as this microphone stand right here. I mean, I think Smith, and I think once he gets into a training regimen of the NFL, he'll bulk up a little bit, but I don't think he really needs to get much bigger. I think he's still going to be a dominating force. All right. Let's move on to Sunday afternoon, where we start with the Browns and the Chiefs.
Chiefs are 6.5-point favorites in Kansas City. This is the game of the week. I'm going to say it. This is the game of the week, I think.
Yeah.
I think both these teams are Super Bowl contenders, and I don't know if you can say that about any other matchup this week. I mean, I could be wrong. But
not the Broncos or Giants? Not the Jags or Houston?
I don't see any. Where both teams are Super Bowl contenders. And I don't care what Cowboys fans tell you, they're not Super Bowl contenders. Anyway, the Chiefs always have a good start to the year, and the Browns, even last year, I know they had a new head coach, so they were getting used to it. They didn't. I think this is a bad start for the Browns. I know the Browns were my Super Bowl pick, but I even think week 1, it's not going to be a good start for them. So now the spread is very high. I think the Chiefs are going to win this game, but the spread is very high. I think I'm actually going to lean towards Cleveland plus 6.5. I think it's going to be a closer game. I think it's going to be similar to the divisional round last year, where it's a little bit lower scoring than people think, and the final score ends up like 23-17 Chiefs. And that would cover the spread for the Browns. I think it's going to be close, but I kind of like the Browns in the situation. In terms of the spread, I think the Chiefs are going to win. Either the Browns are going to mount a drive or come up close, or the Chiefs are going to mount a drive and go ahead. It's going to be a game of the week. I'm excited to watch this one a lot for sure.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go the same route as you. I think the Chiefs will win, but by more than a touchdown or even 6.5 points. I don't think so. I think it'll be pretty close. The Browns' offense, sure, you don't know how Odell is going to affect this offense. They looked a lot better without him on the field last year. I think it's an attitude thing with him, but I think their offense is really good as well. It's not as good as the Chiefs, but I think they can keep pace with the Chiefs for sure. Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, I think both of them are very relevant for this game. Nick Chubb more, obviously, but, Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. It's gonna be fun to watch.
I can't help but go Chiefs on both. I can't help but go with the team that's the best offense in the league. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is already just stepping in easy money. I mean, it looks like it was just a practice for him for the 2 drives that he played in preseason. He just walked in, boom, boom, touchdown. That was it. It was effortless. If he's walking in already like that, I expected him to, but the only thing that they have of any sort of a risk right now is what we talked about with Clyde Edwards-Hilaire. But they have the amount of backup to be able to make up for that with Darrell Williams and Jerick McKinnon if they needed to, just to get by for the run game. But with all of those offensive weapons, you can't get by that. They have enough defense that's also on par with the Browns, I would say. Both very solid, probably about top 10. Yeah, the Browns have weapons. I like Nick Chubb a lot. I like Kareem Hunt a lot. There's not a pass catcher I love on this team. But the defense, so that's the hardest thing, is if your biggest breakout guy is Denzel Ward and you're going to try and have him on Tyreek Hill, 1, he's not going to keep up. Yeah. You can't contain Tyreek Hill. And 2, if you already have to take him out of there, you still have to cover Travis Kelce. You have so many weapons to account for, and I don't think the Browns have quite enough. I think it's going to be just enough where, like you said, Jacob, that they're going to get out early and often in this game. I wouldn't be surprised to see a 2-touchdown lead after the first quarter. The Browns aren't necessarily a big catch-up team, especially with Baker Mayfield at the helm. I don't see them being close enough. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think it's going to start to look that way.
Yeah.
But I think that ultimately they'll cover the 6.
All right. So the Packers and Saints, and I'm not quite sure where they're playing this game.
They're playing in Jacksonville.
Jacksonville? Okay. Yeah.
Packers are a 4-point favorite. I believe I mentioned this to you. I think this is the best spread. I think the Packers are easily going to cover this spread. It's not, the Saints don't even have a home field advantage. And I know I'm sorry, but they just don't, they're definitely going to start out slow.
Well, I agree. I think it's funny, but just because like the home field advantage thing, because of the efforts that they went through to pick Jacksonville, all the list of them, that Rodgers has played the worst in the state of Florida. He's played the worst in that stadium. It's because it's hotter, and it's there was all these different factors that were so nitpicky. It just kind of makes you laugh that they're like, well, they think they kind of have a home field advantage, but no, they don't. Obviously,
I am going with the Packers -4. I almost this was almost my survivor, but the 49ers were just was too easy of a pick for me. But yeah, Packers -4. I think it's a really good spread if you're betting.
Yeah,
it's going to be a great game. Ultimately, I think both teams. The Saints are going to be better than what people think.
I think so. Yeah.
Winston has already shown a miles difference from last year at this time to this year. I'm not saying he has to walk in and be Drew Brees, but the fact that he's shown any sense of improvement shows that it was worth signing him for virtually a nickel they found on the ground.
Yeah.
So, taking him going forward as their starter, I love it. Callaway has broken out fantastically so far. I would love to see him continue to do so. Traquan Smith has ultimately disappeared. It would be great if he would show up at some point, but if Troutman can play, Kamara's always a threat. Latavius Murray no longer on the team, so Tony Jones Jr. could get involved and be a surprise that people don't necessarily factor for. Ultimately, this is going to be a Packers game. They have so much offense, a defense that came out better last year than they have in recent years. A lot trending up for them, while the Saints are kind of a roller coaster of up and down. I'm going to take the Packers here as much as it hurts me, but especially when you're talking a 4. If you were talking maybe into that 6 or 7 range where it was a touchdown, I think this game could certainly be closer, especially at the end.
It was a 3 last week when I checked. That's way too low.
I think the Packers are gonna take this by at least a touchdown. I wouldn't be surprised there.
So a couple of the guys you talked about, Traquan Smith, Adam Troutman. What is their injury status?
Adam Troutman, last I heard, is looking to be ready. He was 1 to 3 weeks after his injury initially, so that would put him right at game time. It hasn't been stated as such yet. But he is just questionable right now. With that, Nick Vannett is also going to be out for 2 to 4 weeks. He will be out for sure. Right. So if he's not Troutman, that is, if he's not ready, Juwan Johnson would be ready to step right into that role and be ready to go there. Traquan Smith is another one that you just really don't know, even a guess, like with Troutman.
Right.
He's been out of practice. He came back for about a week and then was out of practice again. Ultimately found out it was kind of a hamstring issue, so I wouldn't necessarily expect him. If he shows up, great, but the fact that we haven't even heard him in practice to this point is not assuring to me at all. I think there's going to be a lot more going forward for other guys on this team outside of Traquan, like Callaway.
I think Marquez Callaway is going to lead this team by the end of the year in all receiving categories because Thomas is out for at least the first 6 weeks.
Yeah, so he'll be roughly that Halloween game for Michael Thomas. I will say if you either haven't drafted yet or even if you did and you're just about to get started, Michael Thomas would be a fantastic trade candidate. Even if you wait about a week or two and take some of that time off that you're not having to hold on to him, he is going to be a huge value pick this year.
Well, and Marquez Callaway is somebody who's still on waiver wires too, which I think is crazy.
Yeah,
I think
for what it's worth,
he needs to be rostered.
Absolutely
immediately.
Needs to be rostered. And in terms of in terms of the true team and the matchup again, so we just talked about at the beginning of the show how the Saints had just added 2 cornerbacks this week in Desmond Trufant and Bradley Kobe. Roby.
Yep.
Sorry, I knew I was saying that wrong. I couldn't think of it, but I'll take it. Those guys are both on roster, but just this week. I wouldn't expect them to be ready this week, or if they are in full force, it'll take some time to get the Saints defense back into swing. They have a lot of great other pieces. Linebacking core looks great. Defensive line looks great with Cameron Jordan still headlining it there. Demario Davis, Marshawn Lattimore, obviously not to forget about him.
Yeah.
If they can put something together and make a run into the season defensively with that, great. But as we said before with some other teams here, week 1, they're just not going to be ready.
Yeah. I think this game is going to be a lot closer than it is thought.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like you said, the Saints' defense is actually not bad. And their offense has quite a bit of potential in my eyes. I am super high on Marquez Callaway after watching all of the things that he did during the preseason. Alvin Kamara is obviously a stud. And I think we see a bit of a resurrection from Winston this year. He's in the spot to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And will he still throw interceptions? Probably.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's not going to be Drew Brees.
He's
but
Jameis Winston.
Even Aaron Rodgers throws interceptions, so yes.
Well, we're talking on Jameis Winston level interceptions. I still think he'll have quite a few of those, but I still think the Packers are going to win. And at 4 points, I think they'll win by that at least. But I think the Saints are honestly going to be better than people think this year.
I can see it.
Moving on to my game of the week, Broncos and Giants.
It's a very interesting one.
Honestly, I thought this game was going to be close and fun to watch, but looking how the Giants team looks right now, with everybody questionable, and
Broncos are a 3-point favorite in New York, by the way.
Yeah, I would take the Broncos here. I like the situation of Teddy Bridgewater. It might not be a popular opinion, but I like what he represents for the Broncos offense. They have Jerry Jeudy, who's a quick route runner, and Teddy Bridgewater is great with short, quick passes. So I think the Broncos offense, it's probably going to look better than it actually is against a Giants defense, but I think the Broncos win here by at least a touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, I'm high on the Giants this year, and I think this is a good matchup for the Giants, but the injuries worry me. I can't go against I can't root for the Giants at this point. I wouldn't root for them, but I can't pick the Giants in this situation. I just think you're right. With all the injuries, it's going to be a slow start. I do like Barkley in this game, though, because I do think if they're behind, he'll pass the ball a lot. He'll probably get out in space and get a lot of yards that way. I'm hoping so, because also, honestly, even if Barkley isn't 100%, I still think he's their number one guy, obviously. But yeah, I'm going to go with the Broncos here. I want to go with the Giants. I think their Giants are going to win that division still. I think that Giants team is a lot better than people think.
Bold pick, Cotton.
I like the Giants.
I liked them a lot last year. I mean, they kept themselves in a lot of games, and I think once they're actually healthy, or a majority of the way healthy, they're going to be competitive. But this first week, I just don't see, with all of the things going on, them being as competitive as they could be.
That's a really interesting pick for me, almost more than the actual game itself, that winning the division. Because you got the Eagles who are trending up. They only added with Devonta Smith in the offensive game there, and Jalen Hurts is getting ready. Obviously, a lot of risk there, but the Washington football team, number one defense, a lot of offensive weapons, a lot of potential there. Cowboys even just having Dak back alone with that offensive core. It's a lot to go up against. This could easily go from one of the worst divisions to one of the most competitive divisions, even if they are still all 8-8 again. Right. It's still something to.
Well, 17 games, nobody's going to be 500 at least.
True. But Cowboys can't go 500 anymore. So.
Yeah, I just think of the teams, of what it takes to be successful, the Giants show the least amount of that. All they added was Galladay, not to say only Galladay, but I just think he has enough issues in himself. Saquon's coming off of some injury issues. I love Saquon this year. I think he's a great value because of how he's slid. But just not having Ingram, not having enough of a defense to put it together, I can't fully take that. In this game, I'm still going to take the Broncos. The injuries aside, it's not necessarily a comparison. Sterling Shepard, I think, is a fantasy darling here in PPR. He's easy. I mean, he's not even being drafted in some leagues. He's had an insane amount of games where even last year he was kind of forgotten about, and almost every single game he had at least 8 targets. Yeah. He was a fantastic value, and I would highly recommend adding him. But not only on the other side, you have Judy, who's progressed fantastic. I mean, he's looked ridiculous in camp. He has just blown people up, made headlines. You got Cortland Sutton on the way back.
Yeah,
people are forgetting about him, which is great for Judy.
Yeah,
but Sutton's going to have a huge role in this team, and again, I think he's another big value pick because he's being forgotten about.
Well, I talked about our fantasy. I said that I think Judy's going to be the number one receiver on that team this year.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. Did we see? I believe it was the last preseason game for the Broncos. The absolute master play of Cortland Sutton on that DB. Yes. I mean, if you had any questions about his knee, you don't anymore, because that was a hell of a cut, and the defender was confused about what was even going on. So I think he comes roaring back, because even before he got hurt, he was a playmaker.
Oh, he's a force, and that's the thing is, even out of college, he kind of dates back to the draft where people weren't really sure just because he went to SMU, but in true physicality, he is just budget DK Metcalf. I mean, he is massive. He is way faster than you would think. He has the route running that can bust you. He has so many things that you just don't think of, but he has it.
Yeah,
he's going to be a huge force this year.
Well, and then on the other side, I think the Broncos defense, you gotta put them up into at least the top 10. They've got a lot of pieces back, and I mean, Patrick Surtain is a stud. Bryce Callahan's a stud.
They think Chubb's going to start.
Yeah.
So I think the Broncos defense may be in the top 10. But yeah, I think the Broncos do this one pretty well.
Here's the thing. With the Giants thing, I think they have a very complete team if they put it together. It's kind of like what I say about the Chicago White Sox in baseball right now. If they put it together, I think they have the best team. They just haven't. The Giants, in the division, I think they have the best team, because I think they have great offensive pieces. Last year, their defense really stepped up. I think they beat the Seahawks like 17-15 last year. So it was a weird game where the defense just shut down Russell Wilson, and that's when I was like, oh, the Giants are actually kind of good. And obviously they get Barkley back. They basically didn't have Barkley last year. Let's be honest. They had him for one game and 2 quarters.
Where he did not look impressive in any of those.
It was the Steelers and Bears. Those are 2 really good defenses. So I'm not gonna harp on it too much. The fact that the running game didn't do that bad with him out, I think they're going to do a lot better with him in. And I think they're going to... It was a new coach last year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, at the beginning of last year. Plus Jason Garrett is their offensive coordinator, which I think he's a solid offensive coordinator. I really do. And I don't know, I really like this Giants team, but this week alone, I don't like them just because of what... Kenny Galladay himself said that this is going to start out slow with all the injuries. It's definitely not a good...
Not a lot of confidence.
And Evan Ingram's for sure not starting, correct?
I don't know if it's a for sure. It's a more than likely is what it sounded like.
Saquon Barkley expected to play. Evan Ingram long shot. That's what I see.
Yeah.
He did not practice today.
Yeah. So.
Last Sunday afternoon game.
Yes, the last Sunday afternoon game, the Dolphins and Patriots, which, with the cut of Cam Newton, got a lot more interesting to me.
So the Patriots are the 3-point favorite at home. I am, as much as I don't like to say it, I'm very high on the Patriots this year.
I am now with Mac Jones at the helm.
The thing with, I was not high on Mac Jones at all in the draft, but this is the perfect situation for him to be in, because, not saying he's as good as Tom Brady, but this play style is basically Tom Brady. Doesn't run the ball, plays it conservative, takes shots when he needs to. Not saying he's not going to be as good as Tom Brady, obviously, but that's what Bill Belichick does better.
Right.
Like, Cam Newton was really good at the beginning of the year last year. I was surprised, but then it really fell off. I'm going to go with the Patriots -3 in this game. I think they are going to be a very surprising team this year. They added a lot of people. They still have a really good defense. Still Bill Belichick. I'm going to go with the Patriots -3.
I think I'm going the Patriots as well. I think everybody fantasy-wise got an upgrade with Mac Jones being the quarterback. I think Damian Harris gets quite a big upgrade. One, because you don't have Cam Newton taking any rushes from him, especially goal line work. You got Jacoby Myers, who was arguably a stud last year, who I really like, and now he's got a quarterback who can actually throw him the football. And then you have Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry. I think we'll see a lot of 2 tight end sets, which again helps out the running game and creates more passing options. I haven't been high on Tua. I will continue to not be high on Tua until I see him actually go out and do something that I am impressed by. I am high on Mike Gesicki because of the targets.
Well, Tua does not throw the ball down the field. He is a conservative.
He throws
thrower.
it to Gesicki.
Yeah,
is what,
that's why I
what
love
I
Gesicki
picked up
this
from
year.
last year.
Although I actually just made a trade offer for Kyle Pitts, but beyond that, I like Gesicki a lot. I don't know. It's just kind of like a crapshoot. See if he'll take it. But I do like Gesicki this year a lot. That's the thing too. Outside of the play that won the championship, I can't think of a time he threw the ball down the field.
Yeah.
I was out on Tua the moment he said the NFL was a lot easier than I thought it was. Like that, like you don't say that, dude, because it was like after 2 games and he had like.
Well,
2
you know who
games.
else said that this preseason?
Yeah, I know Justin Fields. He said it was slower than
a lot slower than he thought. And then the next week he got.
I agree.
Smacked.
I don't like that.
All right, for you.
No, I'll be honest, I was tempted to take the Dolphins here. I think they've got a lot of weapons going forward. I mean, Devonta Parker's not a huge name for me. Will Fuller is suspended for this week. Preston Williams is still coming back off of another unfortunate injury. Jalen Waddle, yeah, is a fantastic talent, but he has a lot to step into. Just like he's good, but a lot to rely on there. Myles Gaskin, there's worries about what his role is going to be with Salvon Ahmed there and Malcolm Brown. Even if Gaskin comes out, you got to be in a position to be able to run in the game. It's a lot of things that have to go right away for them, and I just don't know if that's necessarily the time. This is a team that, again, in a couple weeks or even halfway through the season could be really putting it together and do it well. I think Tua is going to take a step up this year. He's shown that potentially. He has those flashes, and to me, that in the last year is going to be enough to put together this year with the weapons they gave him. It's kind of that do or die, like how players play on their last year. It's that, hey, we gave you the weapons. This is whether it's knowing if it's us, them, or you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot. It's a very defining year for Tua, and I think he's going to step through. I would be impressed if he didn't. Ultimately, we'll see what happens if he doesn't. If he doesn't, then that's just the downfall, and a lot of things may need to be addressed there. But on the other side, trending up, you got Mac Jones. The running game is trending up. That's the biggest thing, is you're going to be able to use the massive amount of running backs that you've consistently had since the Patriots have existed. The only thing on top of that, Damian Harris is coming up. He's never been the true number 1. We'll see how that turns out. I'm not super confident in him fantasy, but he's not going super early, so maybe worth a shot. Yeah. James White's always there. He's always going to be a force. J.J. Taylor, a lot of hype this year. I don't know if he's going to get enough opportunity. Ramondre Stevenson, expected to be fine. I like him. I like him a lot. He just dislocated his finger this last week. That came out this morning. Expected to be fine even for week 1. Obviously, it's not a huge deal. I'm assuming it's probably not on his main hand. Yeah. But nonetheless, it's just so much going on. As long as they can figure out whoever is running or whenever someone is supposed to be running, great. Because they've got Aguilar who can come in as a serviceable number one. He showed that in Oakland last year. Jacoby Myers, who I think is going to be their number one this year, had a great force last year. Two great tight ends that are established in Johnny Smith, who's more of a receiver in my opinion, and then Hunter Henry. And then you also, not to mention too, you have 8 guys, I believe, coming back that didn't play last year from the Patriots. Yes, Gilmore is not playing in this game. He's going to be out. He's with the injured reserve, or the PUP list. But they still have J.C. Jackson, who just blew up last year. Devin McCourty. All these guys are still there. Donta Hightower is coming back. There's a lot that's going to be in store from this team that people are not expecting.
Well, let's think about it. The Patriots had, I mean, what was good about their roster last year? And they went 7-9. Like, Bill Belichick is a fan. Like, all the hate towards Bill Belichick because of 1 year. It's like that Patriots team, if you just look at their roster, had one of the worst rosters in the NFL, and they were competitive almost every single week.
Yeah.
And they have a much better roster right now.
That's what happens when you live and die by Cam Newton.
Exactly.
Yeah, that division will be pretty interesting. I think the Bills still take it, but I think there's possibility of a wild card team coming out of that division.
I think
as well.
both these teams can have wild card. I know I'm not high in Tua, but Dolphins are good.
Yeah.
They have a good team.
Their defense came up big time last year as well.
I mean, besides,
I would be impressed if this. I mean, there's the spread on this one too, but this one could be a lower scoring version of that too. I mean, in terms of the actual over under.
This one's gonna be a low scoring. It's gonna be like a 23-13 game or something like that.
What is the over under on this?
43.5. I'm pretty sure it's the lowest.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised.
No. All right, so let's move into Sunday night, where we got the Bears at the Rams.
Rams are 7.5 point favorites.
I like it.
LA.
I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm conceding this game. Lose this game badly. Hopefully they start Justin Fields week 2. Then Andy Dalton is starting. That's another issue.
Yeah.
Which is good because I don't want Justin Fields to face Aaron Donald week 1 as a Bears fan. I'm definitely going the. Did you pick New England, by the way, against the spread, Dustin?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, I'm definitely going Rams against the spread. This was almost my survivor pick, but the Bears were close in every game last year. That playoff game really could have gone a different way if Javon Williams just caught that ball. Who knows what would have happened?
He might have been the MVP.
I'm still considering that he did that on purpose because I've never seen a player so nonchalant about dropping a long touchdown pass. He was just like, whatever. Usually when that happens, they put their hand on their helmets and like, oh my god. But he was just like, whatever.
Maybe next time.
They cut him, thank God. But yeah, who knows? I think the Bears. It's good. I wouldn't be surprised if they cover this spread because it's a full touchdown. But yeah, the Rams are going to be really good this year. They have a lot to prove week 1, and I feel bad for Andy Dalton because like all the Bears players don't want him as their quarterback, but Matt Nagy's like, nope, he's starting. Which I agree. I think, like I said, week 1 is a good matchup to just start Andy Dalton, let him suck, and then Justin Fields can come in.
Well, and I can appreciate Andy Dalton starting too because he signed with the Bears with being told, hey, you're going to be our starter. And
this isn't like, we're not kids here. This is the NFL. Things change.
Well, and again, it works out better anyway for everyone involved. I'm picking the Rams easily. This offense, I'm very excited for this offense. Matt Stafford, I think he's finally in a situation with the weapons he needs to be the player everybody wants him to be. Even in Detroit, with hardly ever anything for targets outside of the years he had Calvin Johnson.
And Kenny Galladay at the end.
Kenny Galladay, yeah. But other than that, he still was throwing for 5,000 yards, a bunch of touchdowns. Like, now he's in an offense where he has Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Tyler Higbee, whoever these running backs may be.
Well, the thing is, the Bears have a good running game, and the passing game. The passing game has been suspect the last couple of years, and they don't have Kyle Fuller anymore. He's on your Broncos now. But like I said, I think Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, I'm really glad I have Cooper Kupp. I think they're going to have big week ones, including Matt Stafford, because, like I said, the Bears have a good running game, and I don't know what this running game is, really. And I just really enjoy the passing game that Matt Stafford brings. I think they're going to... I'm really excited to see Matt Stafford in this offense. I think they I would not be surprised at all if they end up as the number 1 seed in the NFC, because I think this team could just explode.
Yeah.
Because Jared Goff was very limited. Matt Stafford isn't really that limited. I mean, he kind of just took over the Lions on himself. I mean, I've watched a lot of Bears versus Lions games, and Matt Stafford was like the only good player on the team. He would frustrate the hell out of us because it's just like, man, this team sucks, but he's just carrying the team. I'm really excited for this Rams team. Obviously, I'm not going to look forward to this game because I'm a Bears fan. But I mean, unless they throw to Cooper Kupp once, then I'll be happy to see on my fantasy team. Actually, I have Robert Woods in my other league, but that's still kind of funny. But yeah, I think the Rams offense is going to explode this game, at least the passing game for sure.
On that defense too. I mean,
yeah,
goes without saying.
Yeah, top 3 defense for the Rams this year, as long as they come through like they did last year. This, to me, is a big establishing game for both teams. For the Bears, you're going to establish more likely than not why Andy Dalton should not be starting going forward. Allen Robinson, I think, is going to define why he is a number 1 and needs to have a good quarterback, because he has done nothing but that in previous years, but he's going to establish it well. I would be hoping that they're going to start to establish Darnell Mooney a little more, given the potential he showed in previous years, or the last year rather, that is. But more important going forward with the Rams, you're going to establish that Stafford is not washed. You're going to establish that he is no joke going forward. He's going to lead this team to a huge offensive force. Robert Woods and Kupp are going to show that they can easily be a top 15 tandem, both of them making it through there. Higbee, I think, is actually going to surprise a lot of people because Stafford did use tight ends pretty well. I mean, back to even Brandon Pettigrew, he was a name that's irrelevant.
Except for Eric.
I think the only reason T.J. Hawkinson is a name now is because of Matt Stafford.
Yeah, I mean, and they spent a first-round pick on him, so the fact that they didn't just waste him automatically, I mean, it was a true talent for sure, but the fact that he was used, he was establishing into a role. The Rams are going to try and figure out. I mean, it's a great game for them, and I don't want to demean the Bears here, but I think it's a point of kind of like a college week 1 where you have a team that's a cupcake game per se. It's a warm up for them to say, hey, we're going to figure out what we're doing with our running backs. Henderson, yeah, you're probably going to be the guy, but we can figure out what we're going to do with Sonny Michel, or if we're going to start Jake Funk at all. If he can even come from behind and get involved, being undrafted. He had a great preseason. He made the roster ultimately over Xavier Jones, who is expected to be the number 2 for quite a while. So I think there's a lot that could shake out there, and a lot that will establish between both of these teams. Obviously, the higher side of it is just the Rams side, and it definitely did, for my answer, they're taking Rams both sides of this.
And not to mention, I think after Andy Reid and Bill Belichick, I think Sean McVay's the best coach of the NFL. I think he is just unbelievable. The fact that they basically beat the Seahawks in the playoffs with John Wolford as quarterback. I know Jared Goff came in when he got hurt towards the end of the game, and even Jared Goff was partly hurt. Yeah. And they easily won that game. Sean McVay is an incredible coach, and when he finally has a really good quarterback, Goff was good. I still think he's just a product of Sean McVay. I mean, you saw him with Jeff Fisher. I'm not saying Jeff Fisher's a good example to have a quarterback with, but he was terrible. And I really believe that this team, this is my dark horse Super Bowl pick for sure, but I don't even think it should be dark horse. Because think of Matt Stafford, like I said, everyone's really down on him. But as a Bears fan, just watch the Lions games. The Lions have no defense, and their receivers were occasionally good, but they also had no running game and no offensive line either. Not to mention the one game against the Bears last year, it was like the final drive, and DeAndre Swift just dropped a wide open touchdown pass.
It was the very first game of the year.
I remember that, and I was like, "Well, the Bears just won that game, even though they shouldn't." So yeah, I'm high on Matt Stafford. I always felt bad for him. I mean, it made me laugh because I'm a Bears fan, but I'm really hoping the Rams are really good this year, because the top 2 teams in the NFC besides them are probably the Packers and Buccaneers. Buccaneers obviously won last year, so you don't want to see them win again, really. And obviously, as a Bears fan, I definitely want the Packers to do well. So I'm really hoping the Rams could be that team to cut in between them.
The fact that the over-under of this game is only 3 points higher than that Dolphins game is kind of shocking to me. But that also just says that it's going to be so in their projections there, to me, one-sided.
Yeah.
That it's not going to be a shootout of two teams high scoring. It's just going to be one team scoring and one getting 6 points.
It's because both these teams have good defenses.
Yeah.
I don't think the Bears secondary is very good though, but their front seven are as good as almost anyone. They have Khalil Mack, Akeem Hicks, Roquan Smith. Robert Quinn was amazing last year, but their secondary was iffy last year, and they lost arguably their best player within Kyle Fuller. So that secondary is going to be really rough. But they're like I said, their front seven is elite, as elite as you can get.
Yeah.
All right, and let's move on to the last game of the week, Monday night. We have the Ravens in Vegas against the Raiders.
Baltimore's 4.5-point favorite in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I like the Ravens here. I don't see a whole lot going in the way of the Raiders. I mean, they are essentially the same team they have been for 3-4 years now. I mean, they've got weapons. Henry Ruggs, hopefully he can go out and do something this year. But the Ravens are just established. I mean, Lamar Jackson's going to have a great game. Gus Edwards, I think we're going to see a lot from him. Mark Andrews, probably a touchdown, maybe even 2. I think the Ravens take this rather easily.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I think, honestly, a large part of it, they have the weapons that you just mentioned there, and I think Gus Edwards is going to establish himself really well this year. Mark Andrews is still the number one pass catcher on this team, regardless of the injuries to Boykin and Bateman. They're going to have to figure out a lot as it goes on with their receivers, or maybe not, because they just never do. But they've got their run game, and they have their defense is what they've always just ran with, and they'll probably do the same this year. The biggest reason that I'm taking the Ravens is just because the Raiders are just consistently shooting themselves in the foot. I think Derek Carr, he's primed to have a better year this year than he did last year, and that's great. He's going to be primed to throw to Darren Waller, who's going to have a fantastic year, and hopefully Ruggs and Edwards can break out. More likely Ruggs than Edwards there, but both very possible. But in terms of actually winning games, they took the one thing that they needed to establish and made it as murky as possible in adding Kenyon Drake to the backfield with Josh Jacobs. Yeah. Josh Jacobs was already a roller coaster to own last year for the first time, let me just say. But going forward, I don't even know what to expect from him, or Kenyon Drake, or neither, or both, or whatever. It's not like it's even a Chase Edmonds and James Conner deal where it's kind of guessing and saying, oh yeah, they'll probably be pass back and goal line back. And they'll kind of split it out outside of that. This is just a mess of just running backs. That's it.
They're just going to throw somebody out there and say, do something.
Yeah, I mean, you like to think it's going to be Josh Jacobs because he is a talented guy, but I feel like they've never known what to do with him, even into last year.
There's one reason I'm going with the Ravens, and here's why. And you guys might know this, but Week 1, 2019, they won 59-10. Week 1 last year, they won 38-6. They are amazing. Week 1. They are
it's coming off
insane.
Those preseason wins, man. They just sweep the preseason and they're feeling good.
Lamar Jackson is completely healthy and amped up, and although I think the Raiders are usually better at the beginning of the season, they have shown that. They beat the Saints last year in Week 2, which was very surprising, in New Orleans, I believe. And it was actually an easy win, too, which was very surprising. Mm-hmm. I just like the Ravens too much in this game. I think it's going to be I think it might be close, but I think it might be like 38-31, maybe something like that. Maybe a little less scoring than that.
I don't know if it is even going to be that close. I think Lamar's going to, and I'm not huge on Lamar, but fantasy-wise and for this game, I think he goes out there and I'd venture to say 5 touchdowns.
It's a good offense with a great defense versus an all-right offense and a garbage defense. Yeah. There's not a lot to take into there. I would take the over on the. I guess I don't know about over on the actual over/under at 51. It's a lot to expect, and you're saying from the last game there you need 2 sides to get to a place that big. Raiders might be all right, but I would be impressed, so I'd take the under there. But in terms of the spread, I'm taking Baltimore easily. Yeah.
The thing is that with Lamar Jackson, someone said it's weird that almost every outside of Kyler Murray, almost every single young established quarterback in the AFC. Lamar Jackson, Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen. You got Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert. Joe Burrow probably is going to be really good. Yeah. Trevor Lawrence is not established, but he's in there. who knows what's going to happen with Sean Watson, obviously. If he gets traded to the Dolphins, there's another one.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny how that turned out, too, because there was a time in the not-too-distant past where it was only Tom Brady, maybe Ben Roethlisberger, and that was pretty much it.
He left at the right time.
Yeah.
Tom Brady is smart, because now the top 2 quarterbacks in the NFC are 39 and 44. That could be wrong about the age, but Rodgers and...
Did Rodgers just turn?
Although Russell Wilson is solid, but he
turn?
just hasn't really shown it in the playoffs the last couple of years. So
Yeah. All right. So you already gave us your survivor pick. Remind us what it was.
and this one, survivor pick. This is not against the spread. You know how this works, Dustin, right?
Go ahead and just explain.
The survivor pick, you pick one team each week. If that team wins, like, not against the spread, just straight up if that team wins, you move on to the next week. You keep going until you lose. The catch is you cannot repeat your pick. So I'm picking the 49ers this week because I think they're easily going to beat the Lions, but I cannot pick the 49ers anymore the rest of the season. And it's just like whoever makes it, it's just kind of another fun little competition that I always do with some of my friends.
So mine is going to be a little less set in stone. I'm picking the Jaguars over the Texans. One, because I do not want to have to pick the Jaguars again this year.
And you don't have to. You only have to pick 16 teams.
Exactly.
No, you have to pick 18. My bad.
So
18 weeks.
Jaguars, I don't want to pick them at all. I don't even want to have to come down to me picking between them and somebody else later in the season. And I think a game against the Texans, who are terrible, is the best time to do it. So I'm taking the Jaguars over the Texans.
So if you lose the first week, you're just done?
Yeah.
Because otherwise I'd be tempted to take Cincinnati here, if I'm being honest.
But the thing is, I always pick a team that I'm just really, really confident in because, I don't really know what to expect. Last year I picked the Chiefs over the Texans. And it was the Chiefs at home, and I was like, I don't see the Chiefs losing that game, and I know what the Chiefs are.
Yeah.
And then I actually got to week 11 last year. I think I lost when I picked the Vikings over the Cowboys when they had Andy Dalton, and the Cowboys just looked terrible. Or maybe it was the Steelers. It was some team over the Cowboys I picked, and the Cowboys won. I think it might have actually been the Steelers. No. I think I picked the Steelers over the Cowboys the week before, and the Steelers won, and then I picked the Vikings over the Cowboys, and the Vikings lost, and that's when I lost. But I remember last year my girlfriend picked the Eagles against Washington, and her Carson Wentz hate only grew. And I'm like, why would you bet against Carson Wentz if you hate him so much? She's like, I don't know. So it was actually pretty funny.
I'm tempted to take the Ravens there, if I'm being honest. It seems like an easier game than it should be. But I think it'd be a big missed opportunity to not take the Niners here as well. I would have to join you if I'm able to do that. If I have to take another one, it'd be the Ravens. But if I can have the same as you, it'd be the Niners. You're going against what is expected to be the worst team in the league this year. In terms of the running game or even just overall health of the team in the Niners, it hasn't been there the last 2 years. So if you can get them early and not have to worry about taking them later, then great.
Like I said, of all the teams that lose week 1, the 49ers would be the most, oh my God, we just lost.
Yeah.
Even the Rams, because the Bears made the playoffs last year.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the Bills are playing the Steelers, the Chiefs are playing the Browns, so that's not too bad. But if the Niners lose, they're just like, bro, what the
Well, it's crazy in comparison to me that in that game you have 8-point favorites of the Niners over Detroit, but in comparison at the same spread, you have Tampa Bay over Dallas.
Yeah,
I think that's a lot closer of a game in comparison of the two with the same.
I think the 49ers spread should be 10 at least.
Yeah.
That. I understand it's in Detroit, but I mean, like I said, the one Lions fan I know knows that they're bad. It's I don't think. I mean, they're obviously going to go and root for them, but yeah, it's that would be shocked if the 49ers lose that game. So that's why I'm picking them. So
yeah.
All right. Anything else?
Do you have anything else?
I don't.
Like I said, let me refresh my fantasy picks, my surprise players of the week. So I'm gonna go with Trevor Lawrence as a quarterback. Like I said, I really like Raheem Mostert as well at running back, and for wide receiver, I know it's not as surprising, but I'm actually gonna go with Terry McLaurin because I think Fitzmagic's gonna have a big week 1, like he always seems to do. For tight end, I might just go with this pick every week because I'm really, really high on him. I'm going to go Kyle Pitts. I think he's going to be amazing. And defense, again, not just because I have him, I think the 49ers are going to be the best defense in week 1.
Yeah, I'd have to say the same for defense. Quarterback, I'd honestly go with Teddy Bridgewater this week. I think I just like how everything is lining up there. Running back, I'm going to have to go with Gus Edwards. I don't know if it's going to be super surprising, but I think he does more than even what people are expecting. Running back, or not running back, wide receiver, I'm going to say Robbie Anderson. I also like that matchup, and I think Robbie Anderson's the number one there. Tight ends, I might go Gerald Everett for the Seahawks. I kind of like him there. And then, defense.
Actually, I'm going to change my tight end pick to Tyler Higbee on the Rams. I think the Rams are going to have a big passing week.
Yeah, that's who I was just getting kind of tempted with there too. Running back, I know for sure I would actually probably take Gibson this week against the Chargers. I think it's a more underrated matchup than you would think. The Chargers aren't exactly known for their defensive line, so I think he's going to have a good game, and then establishing his role going forward this year is what they want him to be, and hopefully a top 10 fantasy running back, because he's certainly got the tools for it, and he's looking to have the opportunity for it, and I think that could pay off really, really well for him. I think it's semi-tempting to kind of get into, like I said, that Brandon Cooks territory almost.
Yeah, I think I agree. He's going to have a lot of targets, I believe. So.
The biggest one for me this week is going to be Cooper Kupp. He's going to be one of my biggest receivers going forward. I'm a huge fan of him personally, but I think he's going to be fantastic this year. And even in this game, like as you said, they don't have their best cornerback anymore with the Bears. They're going to have a hard time covering anybody on that team, let alone Cooper Kupp. He's going to be wide open across the middle, exactly where Stafford's
Can you type in your email, please? Yeah. I'm going to send you the picture of the spread so you guys can change it if you want to. What I have is the spread.
All right.
And the survivor as well.
Alrighty. So
is it just at Gmail?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that is it for this week. We want to thank Dustin for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I
and
really appreciate it.
We want to remind everybody to tune in on Wednesdays. Go listen to Caught in the Current. Give everybody a follow. Meteorologist Jacob Montesano.
Next week I won't be here, but I will be on via Zoom or phone call.
Yeah, we will.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure out what we're doing there. Yep. And then, you can follow the show at all of the links right here. If you're watching on YouTube and you want to listen to the podcast, that's in the links. And if you're listening to the podcast and you'd like to get the full experience of the show, you can hop on over to YouTube. So other than that, thanks for tuning in, guys. Happy football time, and we'll see you next week.
Let's do this.